So I accidentally Googled the wrong thing and I found this like, it's a duo of Italian women who sing kind of house, classical Italian rock weirdness. It sounds like you're shopping in anthropology. Anyway, so for a lot of you, I recognize a lot of the names in the roster, so I thought I'll say hi. I lost my little video self. There, my little video self is. Um, and so I want to tell you about my path. How do I get to where I am? Well, so I was digging around through some photos, and I can't find any old photographs of me, but I did find this. Hold on, wrong window. There. I put it over here. Okay, this is your teacher in high school. I found this video reel that I've literally been carrying around since 1988. This is 1988 or maybe even 1987. I think it's 88. The Burlington Invitational, I remember that. My buddy Jimmy got a movie camera from one of my friends, and so they started filming it. And there's a bunch of stuff in here, like, and somebody's high jumping. That's Pat Morrison. He teaches at the high school that I went to now. That's a skinny little Weinert. And wait for it. Wah! All right, well, here I am again. Yay! So this is the only video I have of me in high school throwing the discus. I was a track athlete. I grew up in Vermont. This is in Vermont. I had a kind of a bumpy kidhood. My parents got divorced, and my mom is kind of a train wreck not a bad way, but just in a train wreck way. And so I didn't do much until my sophomore year of high school. I played saxophone. Was in jazz band, and I liked playing instruments, but I just wasn't into school, and I wasn't into anything. And the guy that sat next to me in band, named David, said, "Hey, you need to go and throw." I'm like, okay. So because I was a big kid, so I went and started throwing shot puts and discuses my sophomore year of high school. Completely rearranged and changed my entire trajectory in life, I'm pretty sure. I was motivated. I started working out. I started eating healthy. I started studying, and I went into all honors classes as opposed to being remedial classes, kind of the opposite you would expect of a shot putter and discus thrower. Well, when I had to go to college, I chose San Diego. Back in Vermont, there's this thing called winter, and because I thought that throwing was the coolest thing ever, I decided that I wanted to go somewhere warm for college. My dad lived in San Jose, and I said, okay, you can go to San Jose State and live at his house, or you can go to San Diego State. And I said, San Diego versus San Jose. San Diego. And full disclosure, and I apologize in advance, the first day I went to San Diego State, it was a hot day. And it wasn't during spring break, and their school was still in session, and it was hot. So all these people are walking around not wearing many clothes, and my brain said, this is where I want to go to school. Different than now. Now they walk around in string bikinis. Yeah. But back then, my 18-year-old brain was like, yes. Actually, I think I was 14 when I went out. Anyway, I just basically, this is what I want to do. So I went there, loved it. I actually competed on the track and field team there. Here is the college version of me throwing, significantly more muscly than I was in high school. The hair, don't ask about the hair. But I was definitely, I gained some weight. I went from 200 pounds when I got here to 285. And I still threw discus. And what's really funny is if you look at the technique of me throwing discus, that's Bob. Hold on. I don't know what happened to Bob. But if you look at me throwing discus in college, it's Bob throwing discus in college. Here's me throwing discus in college. It's very similar to me throwing discus in high school. It's really interesting how it doesn't change. Anyway, so where'd I go? Oh, I'm over there. So I was dedicated to throwing shot puts and discus. I still played saxophone. I still played in the jazz bands. I had a really good time with doing all of that sort of thing. And then my senior year, my fourth year in college, I had the opportunity to take a redshirt year. I was about this far from national qualifying. I was almost able to go to the national competition. Not nearly as good as Coach This was, but I was getting good. I was getting good, and I said if I took an extra year and worked really, really hard in the weight room, I could probably make Olympic trials because I was getting close enough. I was pretty close to those qualification marks. So I'm like, yes, I'm going to do this. Shot put and discus is what I need. So I took an extra set of courses. I went into San Diego State as a psych major. No idea what it was. Never took psychology, just sounded cool. And then I was also a bio minor. I love biology, except I did not do well in my first semester of organic chemistry, so I dropped out of that. And yeah. Anyway, so I picked my minor in biology. I decided to emphasize in human physiology. So my senior year, because I had an extra year technically of college, I took advanced biology courses and neurobiology, and I also took some really hard psych courses and some graduate level psych courses as a senior, and I absolutely loved it. And it was like I decided that I needed to not do something because I don't have enough time. So I gave up music and decided to dedicate full time to track and school. Well, my senior year, this is probably 93 at this point. The spring of 93, the track team was cut. They said, we're not going to have a track season. So even though I worked really, really hard the year before, I was big, I was strong, no track season. A lot of my teammates transferred to other schools. I decided, meh, I really like the school thing. So I just said, okay, track, thanks. And I stopped doing track and field. I started coaching track. I coached track and field from 1993 all the way to 2001 when I got hired here. I was a coach, and I really loved that time. That was a wonderful time of my life. So fun, but it takes a lot of time. And so we decided to start having a family. So we decided that coaching's not going to be beneficial for us having a family. So I shifted gears, full-time teaching. In graduate school, I went to San Diego State graduate school. I was teaching assistant. I taught introduction to psychology courses, and I also worked full-time at a research lab. We studied brain development and biology of birth defects and some other really neat stuff. But my research advisor, Dr. Ed Riley, we talked to me in his office, and he goes, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to get my doctorate, and I want to work full time, and I want to be a researcher, and I want to have my own lab. And he goes, are you sure? And I'm like, oh, what is he telling me? So basically what he said is like, you're really good teaching. And he said, you should really not go into becoming a full professor, but go into teaching. So I kind of listened to him, and I said, okay. So this was 1996, I think, at this point. And so in the fall of 1996, fall of 96, the fall of 97, that's right, fall of 97, I quit the research lab. I got accepted to Tulane University. I could have got my PhD in Tulane. But I decided I'm going to, no, not going to PhD. I took a program to become a high school teacher. I got a teaching credential, an emergency credential in biology, math, and I took a bunch of tests, and I passed a bunch of tests because I'm useless at remembering lots of information. Physics, earth science, chemistry, and the irony, that's funny anyway, and math. And so I was able to teach those subjects at the high school. So I got hired at Ramona High School, go Bulldogs, in 98, and end of 97, before 98 school year, and was very happy there coaching and teaching science, and it was just wonderful. So at and I've been teaching part-time at the community college since 95. I started teaching at Grossmont and picking up a class at Palomar, and then I taught a class here, and then I started teaching 2 classes here. And then when the full-time job opened up in 2001, I got hired at full-time here. I've been here ever since. I absolutely love it. My full-time teaching community college job is very basic. It's a lot of work and it changes all the time, so it's not the same, which I really like. I'll just give you a typical day of my community college teaching job. The 2 or 3 weeks before the semester, right now, I am going through a panic of getting my syllabi ready, organizing my calendars for all of my classes, trying to figure out how to change assignments that have been done in the past so that they're not crappy. When students don't do well on them in the past, I try to change them to make them more successful but still learn stuff. Currently fighting with the robots. There's a lot of students that are just turning in AI and don't want to do schoolwork or don't know how to do schoolwork, or my winter session class with students who can't speak English at all are able to enroll and do classes using AI. Whether they're doing it or not, that's a vague question, and we're having that discussion right now. That's one of the challenges of my job, is making sure that you guys learn stuff. Like 27% of you won't make it this far in the video. Huh. Anyway, because I can't see the time that we're in, but we're probably past most of your attention spans. So so I have to prepare all my classes, I have to find all my resources, I have to teach my classes, evaluate what I'm doing, change what I'm doing. It's a lot. And for most faculty, they teach 5 classes. That's a full-time load. And 5 classes should be, according to contract, no more than 3 preps. So if you have 5 classes, you should teach 3 different classes. Some semesters I've taught 6 different classes. I was the only full-time faculty psych here for probably 8 years. And so I just had to teach whatever was needed to be taught. And so again, with my attention, and I remember lots of useless things, sorry. It's no problem, it's fun for me. Sometimes I'll get a little discombobulated. Hold on. Sorry, I had to sneeze. I'm gonna sneeze again, probably. Okay. I mentioned about attention thing, right? Yeah. Anyway, so to me, I like learning new things and I like doing new stuff, and I constantly am doing lots of things. Okay, so that's like my teaching load. Outside of that, I am on committees. I am the chair of the technology committee, so I know where all the technology goes. I help decide what technology needs to be funded and not needs to be funded, what technology can be recycled and reused, which ones can't. I'm currently working on a project trying to get surplus computers like the ones behind me given to students like you who might need a computer. Laptops are great, but they walk away, they break. Box computers are very robust and they last a long time and they just work. And so like the old computers behind me, we have set up for our research lab, which I'll get to, and they're great. And I have some old Macs over here that I've been refurbishing, and students can use those and they work mostly great. So committee work, the other committee I'm on is petitions committee. I'm on let's see, what was the other one that I was on? I'm on a scholarship committee. I was on sabbatical committee. I've been on lots and lots of hiring committees. So that requires, depending on the week, but usually a couple hours a week per committee. Not that big of a deal. My typical work week is Monday through Thursday, and Fridays we have meetings and things. Generally don't teach on Fridays. Because I am teaching online, I use some of the time that I have throughout the day to do the online work. I try to avoid bringing my computer home, and I don't generally do work at home, just because when I'm at home, I'm in mom mode and I'm feeding the family and doing laundry and cleaning up after the dogs and all my proper chores to maintain a healthy, happy household. One of the things that I started doing a couple of years ago was that we wanted to start doing research, so I created a research lab. I've had 5 or 6 projects we go through the lab. We've been published 3 times, um, and it's really fun. I really enjoy doing research. To me, that's what this whole business is scientific research. We did a really cool project last year. We took a group of students to WPA, Western Psychological Association, and it was great. It was a mind-changing experience for me and for a lot of the students that went. They were just blown away about how cool it was. So this year we're working on a couple projects. We're working on one with Jeannie from Stanford University. She has a project that we cannonballed, and I said, hey, can we use your stuff and we can add data to your data set? She goes, great. And so we're doing that, and I'll send links to some of these surveys we're doing. We're doing an experiment about mindfulness and imposter syndrome right now, and this semester we're going to teach mindfulness to see if it changes imposter syndrome. Interesting. But you'll be involved with that if you want to. We're also doing we're constantly doing experiments with scrolling and how it affects your consciousness and how it affects your brain. Scrolling is really kind of dangerous, and we're discovering that it really is a lot more detrimental than people give it credit for, especially to do with consciousness and attention and cognitive fatigue. But anyway, so I do that on my fun time. Really, if you guys want to be interested or interested in working and doing research, please reach out. I need people. I had about 13 at the beginning of the summer, really focused and fired up and wanting to do this, and they all turned into crickets. No idea what happened to them. Well, I know what happened to some of them, but some of them just disappeared. So for you, if you're interested, jump on in. WPA is in Vegas this year. We're not presenting anything, but dude, you need to go to Vegas. It's amazing. Write people's names down, get people's contact information, find people, meet people, compliment people about their shoes in elevators. Don't be creepy, because it's you never know who you're going to meet. One of our students last year doing it was literally standing in the elevator with the director of the American Psychological Association, chitty-chatting with her about something. Just idle chit-chat. And later on a meet and greet, we're talking to them like, oh yeah, I like your Leah. And they're like, oh yeah, you know who this is? Like, this is the director of the APA. I'm like, oh, cool. The person who runs the show for us. Anyway, so it's great. It's really important that you do something. And if you want to be a part of us, that's great. The downside of my job, the thing that I don't like the most, is there's a lot of bureaucracy. I never know how much my paycheck is going to be. Every month, you'd think you'd get paid the same, but the payroll does very strange things. My wife and I were figuring out yesterday, how much am I getting paid right now? I don't know. And it's different. We can't figure it out. And I email HR, and they explain it to me that it's some crazy ass formula that I don't understand. It's just hard to budget. We get paid once a month. The salary ranges are okay. I've been here for 25 years. And by being here for 25 years, I'm up on the salary scale. I'm about half as high as I would be if I was at Miracosta. So I'm about making half as much at some other community colleges in the district, in the state. I'd be making about twice as much if I was in industry, doing the same kind of stuff, teaching the same research methods and that kind of stuff in to biotech folks. But I wouldn't change this for anything. To me, it's just been an absolutely great, awesome career. I'm 55 this year. Technically, I can retire in 7 years, 63. I don't anticipate having to retire. My wife is a very high maintenance creature, and I'm never going to stop working. She just requires a lot of stuff, just a lot of hair, nails, and massages, and Pilates, and just, I'm cheap, I'm simple, I just don't care. All right, I think that's enough.